Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we're going to be talking about drunk driving. I have Kevin Dredge on the show today, and he's going to be talking about life after being hit from a drunk driver. Get you something to drink and get you a snack and come on back. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and just coming on the show to share your story. Why don't we start by you just kind of sharing a little bit about yourself and then we'll go from there.
Okay, well, I'd like to first thank you very much for this opportunity. And it's something that I'll first start off with. My name is Kevin Dredge. I was born on December 2nd, 1969. I will be 51 years old very soon. I do have two children that I take great responsibility for since the day they were born.
Yeah.
I've always been about children. I've always been about people. And what I'm doing today is sharing a story that has been built up in my gut for 30 years. And I'm doing this to share my story and to help encourage others to think twice, to really just take a deep breath and calm down and not resort to alcohol and or drugs.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you have a passion for mental health. I know you're a very strong mental health advocate as well. But we're gonna just start off with you just kind of talking a little bit about your story with drunk driving. So what happened? I know you was on a head-on collision and just kind of start from there.
Well, it all happened in 1990, Jesse, on Halloween night, October 31st. I was in Tempe, Arizona. I had gone to trade school at the age of 19, trying to find my skills. I didn't do very well in high school, and I think that I really did well in kindergarten through sixth grade because of my blue eyes, because I smiled, because I was the teacher's pet. I really didn't learn anything. So getting to seventh and eighth grade and ninth grade, it was a big challenge for me. And that's just being serious and being honest with myself and others. I really didn't have the skill set to be in the seventh grade.
Yeah.
So I had to find my skill, and it wasn't long before I started doing alcohol and smoking marijuana. That's why I decided to go to trade school at the age of 19. I wanted to get away from drugs. I wanted to get away from alcohol. So I went to trade school to learn air conditioning and refrigeration. During that time, I met a wonderful person that was near and dear to my heart. He and I decided to go out on Halloween night. I was driving my truck. It was a 2-seat pickup truck, little Datsun. We went to Tempe, Arizona State University, and we went to go visit with some friends. And from that point, leaving Arizona State University parking lot, we jumped onto Mill Avenue, and unfortunately, a person was drinking too much, and he was behind the wheel, and he hit us head on, Jesse. My friend Eddie and I flew out the front window of my truck.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, I made it. My best friend did not make it. He died on the scene. I don't remember getting up off the ground 50 yards away from my truck, but 2 police reports indicate that I was talking. I was there. I don't remember anything. I was unfortunately in a mild coma after that point. I broke my skull. It bruised my brain. I broke many, many bones, lost some teeth, nearly missed my jugular vein. But you know what? The drunk driver died as well.
Wow.
So I've been living with that for 30 years, and I'm here to tell my story and hopefully inspire others to think twice about drinking and driving, and to think twice about life.
Yeah. Yeah. So were you under the influence as well? I'm sorry if I missed that part. Or was, I mean, you was driving, were you under influence too, or just the other, the guy that hit you?
And that's a deep question. And that's something that the police reports, and there was no charges on my behalf of drinking and driving whatsoever.
Yeah.
And this was in 1990. I do know that I was drinking beers.
Okay.
I do remember going to a party before the accident.
Okay.
So
Okay.
how hard is that to hold somebody else accountable for drinking and driving and killing my best friend and killing himself, when I'm looking at myself? Was I drunk?
Yeah.
Did I do something that I shouldn't have done? Did I make the right turn? And those are the things that I have been working on within myself to understand, recover, and to provide support to others that may be going through or may miss that.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Okay. I appreciate your honesty. So, what happened shortly after everything was over? Because I'm sure that was a very traumatic experience for you. Your best friend is gone. The other guy is gone. Like, how did life change for you at that moment?
Every day, thinking about his family, thinking about
Mm.
his next of kin. It's
Yeah.
been so hard.
Yeah.
And to adjust to my lifestyles and to my new beginnings. Jesse, I shouldn't be here, really. I mean, to fly out, I was doing 50 miles an hour. The drunk driver was doing 50 miles an hour. Both drunk drivers, I don't know if I was drunk. And that's the whole point, is that I do know I had beers. I was 19 years old. Did I have more than 3 or 4 beers? I can almost say yes. Would that bring me to a .08? Yes. So the things that I'm doing and hoping to inspire is to steer people in a different direction, to really give them resources and hope on finding an outlet rather than drink and or doing prescription drugs and or doing drugs, period.
Yeah. How did his family act towards you? Did they feel like it was your fault? Like how was their reaction towards you after he passed away?
They don't like me, man.
Okay. They blamed you.
I don't know the specific details, but I know that I don't think I'm welcome.
Okay. When was the last time you talked to anybody in his family? 10 years, 20 years?
I'm sorry.
I said, when was the last time you talked to anybody in his family? Your best friend who passed away?
Yeah, I just spoke recently to one of the acquaintances last week.
Okay. 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 Um, so you developed a brain injury from that accident. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, as I said, I was ejected out of the front windshield of my vehicle, and during that time, I hit my head going out of the top frame, and so that unfortunately did the damage. And I think that your question was, What was it again, Jesse?
You inquired a brain injury. Talk about
Correct.
that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately, I'm not a doctor or a scientist to really let you know exactly the trauma and the things that really happen or that happened. But what I do know after several diagnoses and doctor visits is that I did damage my brain, and that has to do with my short-term memory loss, long-term memory loss, and it affects my mood as well. So those are the three triggers of that part of the brain that I bruised and damaged. So it's a trial and error, man. It's just walking through and as I said, just doing the best I can for my kids, my family, and for my next door neighbors.
Okay. You're 19. You just had a big car accident. You acquired a brain injury. What was, 'cause I want to know what was life like, because obviously your life changed. What was life like for you after the event had occurred? You've moved on in terms, well, not necessarily moved on, but things happened in terms where you had to move on because you couldn't bring your friend back. You couldn't change the past. You couldn't change what happened in terms of the accident. Like, how was your life at that point? How did it affect you mentally?
Well, I came home, and I my mentor gave me the best advice of my life, and that's to believe in myself
Yeah.
and and to really just strive for excellence. I went to school to achieve a perfect attendance because I really didn't do well with my attendance in seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And I really wanted to get a good GPA. So after the accident and my mentor's advice and my family's advice, I decided to go right back to school when I recovered to get my perfect attendance. And I did get a 3.72 GPA, grade point average.
Yeah.
And life after the accident, Jesse, every time, every day I looked up and I visioned my best friend waving. And he'd always tell me, make a difference,
Yeah.
strive high. So with that in my heart and my belief and my soul, that
Yeah.
was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And before the accident, if I can, you don't mind me saying, my number one goal in life, if anybody would ask me from a young toddler to today who I am, what's your goal in life, Mr. Dredge? And I've always wanted to be a part of the big brother and big sister. I've always wanted to be a part of mentorship. And that was before my accident.
Yeah.
And after the accident, it even increased my desire.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done is I've just dedicated my life to my kids, my family, and to advocating towards mental wellness and health.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, sometimes I will say this. I hope that you can find peace within yourself, um, because in terms of the what happened and stuff like that, because the way that I look at it is, God have you here for a reason. I mean, you and your friend both flew out. It was a reason why you stayed here, and it was the reason why God felt your friend had to leave. You guys both were young. Guys obviously was friends. You guys both made the agreement to party, drink, whatever, because it could have been the other way around. It could have been him driving and you're in the passenger seat, and vice versa. So I just find it very selfish for his family to blame you and to just kind of distance themselves from you, because I'm sure you loved him just as much as they did. I mean, and then you also had physical injuries as well that you was living with and stuff like that. So I feel like that was a little bit selfish on their behalf. And I'm very what word am I looking for? I'm very compassionate with people who have strong friendships, because I have a close friend and stuff like that. And I know, although I haven't made some of the choices he made, I know how a family can be that, you know, may not necessarily are on board with your friendship because they have their own beliefs and their own way of thinking and stuff like that. So just find peace within yourself and just, you know, in terms of that and just try to move on. Don't worry about whatever they don't like about you or whatever they blame you for. They have to deal with that when they lay down and take their last breath here on earth. They have to deal with that with God. But it's a reason why you're still here. That's for sure. Maybe it's because he knew you was going to advocate for stuff like this. So just find peace within yourself. So I just want to just say that. How hard was it for you to start to bounce back? Because I'm sure at the time when you was 19, you didn't have kids back then, right?
Yeah, the bounce back part is part of self-healing, really.
Yeah.
I want to go back real quick too. I appreciate your saying that, and I definitely agree that I am here for a reason. And with the family, I don't think that that's very fair on my part on not explaining a little bit further. When
Okay.
I came home, or when I was in the hospital, I was in, like I said, I was in a 5-day mild coma, and I was there for quite a while. So the funeral and everything took place back. I was in Arizona, back in the Bay Area. So I was being hospitalized at that time. I didn't know his mother and father and family. I did know his
Oh,
mother and father and family through my best friend at the time. And he
okay.
talked nothing but very, very positive and positive, 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 and loved his family more than I could ever even explain. Um,
Yeah.
and that sticks to me on how their relationship was. So let me clear it up real quick. Is that when I came home, one of Eddie's best friends, he's the one that let me know, Dredge, don't show your face, don't go over there. So that was 30 years ago when he said that. I touched base with him a few times after the fact, and he said still just in his recommendation is that he just leave it alone. So
Oh, so
I'm
you didn't have no real direct contact with them. Um,
negative.
oh,
No,
okay.
no, I
Okay.
didn't. So
Okay.
is it part of me coming out right now and being able to just go knock on the door and shaking hands? Maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe that's where I'm finding myself. Maybe that's what, I need. So I can't really say anything negative about them. And I just didn't explain myself properly.
Okay, that's good to know. It's very good to know that. So now I'm looking at it from a different perspective because I know he may, advice like that to me is very interesting because I know he's probably close to the family, and you know, no, he probably getting the firsthand information, knowing how they feel and their thoughts about the situation. But they could be thinking like, well, why didn't he come over here and reach out to us? I mean, there's two sides to a coin.
Coward, man. Coward.
Yeah, and so for me personally, I would have went and
You're a
made my
coward on my
peace.
part, Jesse.
I would have, well, yeah, I that's what I would have did. Only because, you and I can watch a movie and you may get a different take on the movie, and I may get a different take on the movie. So he's probably telling you from his perspective, but inwardly, they probably wanted you to come over there. You was the last person with their son. What
Yeah.
did he say? What happened that night? What did you guys do that day? I'm sure that they probably want to know those things. So, you know, so okay. Okay. We can move on from that because I don't want to linger on that too long. So you went to college. At what point in your life did you feel like you wanted to, or did you want to start raising awareness around drunk driving and things like that?
Geez. 2016. So we'll say for the last 4 years that's been what I've aspired to do. But it's really, like I said, with the mentorship and aspiring to help others has been my whole life. So it's just been a transition from stages to stages.
Yeah, because here in society, people do it all the time. People go out to the bars, even despite we got Corona. People go out to the bars, and people think they have their drinking under control. They may have a few glasses of wine or a few shots or whatever it may be. And despite the fact that we have like Uber or Lyft, where they can get a ride, they still get behind their wheel because they think they're in control. And you'll find it more, it's more prevalent amongst the youth now, the 16 and 17 years old. A lot of them just out partying and they young, don't have a lot of life experience. And before you know it, they behind the wheel driving home. So what can you do, or what advice would you give people who are out and about at the bars or with friends' house and stuff like that, and they are drinking? What advice would you give them before they get behind the wheel?
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, there's definitely a lot of resources for us to utilize, such as Uber and Lyft. So that's a huge alternative right there. Walking is always a great idea. Getting a little bit of exercise, or calling a family member, calling a friend.
Yeah.
Just to have it in your mind. Just don't even drive there. If you plan on drinking, just find a way to get there and find a way to get home prior to the party.
Yeah. 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 That's very important. And then when you see friends, or like I don't party, but if I was in a situation like that and I had friends I was with that did that, which, well, I would advise them not to do it. And sometimes you give a person advice and they will do it anyway because they think they're in control. You know, so yeah. So how do you feel the accident impacted your life in a positive way?
As I mentioned, every day for years, I just always vision, my best friend. So that impacted me positively, instead of negatively, to continue to strive high, continue to make a
Yeah,
difference, not just for myself and my family, but for him and his family as well.
yeah, yeah. Um, have you shared your story with your children? They know about your story.
They do.
So what do they think about the? I mean, have they given their opinion about the situation at all? I'm just curious.
How is that? What's that?
I said, have they gave you their opinion about the situation? Like, did they try to comfort you and just say, "Dad, it's time to move on," or "Dad, you're doing a great job with the advocacy and things that you're doing surrounding drinking and driving."
Right. The thing that I am so thankful for with my former wife and my parenting is
Mhm.
today, and in the day that we're in, is that both mom and dad can look at our kids and know that they are positive examples.
Uh,
So everything that we've done and everything that's transpired throughout their lives and our lives is, we're very fortunate to know that our kids are examples and they're positive and they're striving to make a difference. And was that because of my situation or mom's situations or my grandma and grandpa's or my mom and dad's? It's hard to tell.
yeah,
But we're very supportive towards each other. We get along very well.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. So what type of treatment did you receive from your brain injury?
A lot of reconstructive memory, a lot of different doctor visits. Uh,
Okay.
I think that with the brain injury is one thing, but when you talk about the bone injuries and the reconstructive surgeries after the fact, that's where it gets really, really trying, and difficult with doctor visits and qualified medical evaluations and prescriptions and
Yeah,
surgeries, and going on throughout the life of the last 30 years has been a challenge. But you know what? still here.
Yeah, yeah. Um, how many surgeries have you had in regards to from the situation?
From the situation, I've had many reconstructive surgeries. Through this, I've had two different reconstructive surgeries through the accident.
Wow. And do you know you don't even look like it at all?
I
You don't look
appreciate
like it
that.
at all. Yeah, not
One
at all.
has to do with November 14th of 2012 that was the last drink that I had. So maybe that has a little to do with it, but I haven't had a sip of alcohol nor prescriptions in 7, 8 years.
Okay, wow. That's
No
good.
drugs,
Congratulations.
staying clean.
Yeah, congratulations. Doesn't it feel good to have a clean life from drugs and alcohol? Like it's like your mind is more clear. Your obviously your sense of judgment is more on point and more. I mean, it's different. I mean, I know I've had a background with it, so I can relate. I mean, it's just like years, like many years ago. But I mean, I don't like nothing to like I don't like nothing to mess with my mind in terms of being altered. You know, that's why even like in the wintertime, it's hard for me to drink cough syrup because I know it has that, you know, make you drowsy and all that. So I wait, and that's like the last alternative, you know, if I need to use it. But you know, you are at a better place. People who are living in recovery and things like that, they're definitely at a better place in life in terms of making decisions and not making poor choices. Because when you are uninfluenced, you definitely do things that you won't normally do, for
Right.
sure. So I think that's good. So coming out of that situation, and how I want to know, how did it affect you or your life mentally? Like, how did it affect you? What did you deal with any type of depression and anxiety, or what happened to you mentally during that state?
Just trials and tribulations of remorse, hate, guilt, anxiety, depression, you name it. I mean, it
Yeah,
just really on what phase I was in. But throughout of the as long as I kept thinking and knowing of what my mentors taught me and what my family believed in, and it's just positive.
yeah. Okay. When you say mentors, explain that in terms of what type of mentors did you have?
Excuse me.
I said, what type of mentors? I guess I should say, what type of mentors do you currently have, or where you had that mentored you?
One that I had for 30 years was my grandfather. He was
Okay.
lieutenant colonel, excuse me, in the United States Air Force. He retired out of McClellan Air Force Base. And then he went to Los Angeles County, and he was a sheriff out in Los Angeles County. He retired out of there, pensioned through that sheriff's department. And then he came back into Sacramento, and he was a school teacher. And so he pensioned out of that as well. And he had nothing but good in his heart. He had nothing but helping others and taking care of his community. So to have that from the day of my birth until he died did wonders. I mean,
Yeah.
it got me to where I am. Other mentors that I've had in sports, played a lot of baseball, football. My coaches inspired me a great deal to never give up and to strive to win and just do my best.
Yeah.
Work employees, I've got mentors, mentees, I've got kids right now that mentor me. I mentor them. My kids mentor me, I mentor them. So we've
Okay.
got a pretty big pool of mentors going right now, which is very needed in this pandemic that we're in. It's just devastating on the loneliness and the things that are taking place.
Yeah. You know, I was reading some online and it was talking about how the drug, well, let me back. Alcohol consumption has actually increased due to this pandemic. Do you think there is any truth in that?
I'll tell you what, with looking at statistics, Jesse, everything has increased from
Okay.
from 2019 to 2020. We're up 50% and just about every metric, over 50%. And that has to do with drug, that has to do with alcohol, that has to do with adultery, that has to do with suicide, that has to do with depression, that has to do with anxiety, that has to do with not being happy. I mean,
Yeah.
so with this pandemic has brought great mental weakness, Jesse. There's a lot of mental weakness going on.
I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
You said mental weakness.
Yes.
Wow, interesting.
And then to hear that is, that's the fun part, is to get into some resources and some training programs, is to give yourself mental strength. And so when we look at it as a mental weakness and a mental strength, it's just one of those ways, hopefully, that we can focus on getting a little bit more strengthened up in our head so we can produce a little bit better.
Yeah. I have a friend who drank a lot. I mean, he drank a lot. Matter of fact, he is in the hospital now. You know, and a lot of it was contributed to he recently lost his mom in May. And, you know, according to him, you know, he wasn't being treated the way that he felt he should have been treated by his family, you know. And, you know, he always talked about how, you know, that they were trying to uh, mold him into living a life the way that they wanted him to live. I'm telling you, he was always been different. When I say different in terms of the culture that he come from, they all kind of have this same way of thinking, you know, like it's passed out from generation to generation to generation, but that's not the way he think. And so me on the outside looking in, I think what happened is, you know, he started to move another way, and they tried to bring him back into the fold because in their mind, and I'm not talking about just the poor choices, I'm talking about even when he was making good choices. I think that they felt like, you know, no, you should be doing it this way, or no, you shouldn't be. Even like, for example, going to the movies. A lot of them was against him going to the movies. Okay, he's an adult, he can go see what he wants to see. You know, even when he was doing good, quote unquote, they've always had something to say about the choice that he was making. And he got to a point where I specifically remember him telling me this one day too, and I never forget this. I never shared this with them either. But I remember him telling me this one day. He wanted to, he came to some money, and so he wanted to buy, man, what a 4Runner truck, which he I think he ended up getting. But his sisters now felt like, well, you should get this truck. You could be doing this. They had us, you know, they kept like, well, he felt like they kept hounding him to get a brand new truck for the money he paid for his 4Runner. But that was the truck he wanted. And so I told him, I said, well, I told him, I said, what do you want? He said, I want this truck, the truck I'm talking about. I said, well, it's your money. You're an adult, get what you want to get. And that was that. But then it became more like, well, you know, you just went shopping the other day when you got some more clothes for. And it was just always this nitpicking and just, you know. And I remember him telling me, you know what, Jay, he said, man, I can't do anything right. He said, I can't do it right. He said, I come home, I go to the mall. He said, I've gave them money, I did what I can do. And I come home, they always saying, well, you bought this, you bought that. He was always on the microscope. So he was like, forget it. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And what he was telling me was, I'm going to go and make poor choices because I can't do anything right, according to them. And I felt so bad for him. I really, really felt bad for him because he wasn't strong enough mentally. When you just said mentally weak, that reminded me of him. He wasn't strong enough mentally to break away and becoming someone. Man, I grew up in a family of drug guys and alcoholics. My mother was, when I say alcoholic, was very violent when she be, you know, with us growing up. She was very physical and mentally abusive towards me when she was under the influence of alcohol. I know there's times she threw out, you know, put me out at age 11 years old. I was homeless, sleeping in abandoned buildings. And I remember one day she would come in and about 2 or 3 in the morning drunk, and she would want you to clean up, or she wants you to take out the garbage, or and just crazy stuff. And she would I was thinking about this the other day, she would literally get a screwdriver and take the door off the latch and set it to the side because we tried to close and lock it. Right. My mother wasn't no joke, she wasn't playing. But I knew we were so into conflict with each other because my mind, and me and her talked about this like 2 weeks ago too. My mind was a little bit more stronger. Matter of fact, it was a lot stronger than what my friend is. Because had that been me in that situation, I wouldn't have trained them how to treat me. First of all, I would have moved out and I would have distanced myself. Right. Because if you truly, truly, really love me like you say you do, then that's time and that space from each other, for one another, is going to cause you to respect me and my decision, even if it is wrong. If I'm wrong, you're gonna come back, or if I'm drinking or whatever, and you feel like that's like the worst thing in the world, even though some of them do it, you will say, hey, you know what? I love you. You know, you've been away too long. You got to treat people how to treat you. You got to teach people how to treat you. So what I did was the year I graduated high school, the year, whatever year that was in June, I left Chicago that August and never been back to stay because I knew my family. I knew they was very controlling. They were dysfunctional, just like, you know, his family was very controlling. My family was controlling, to my mom specifically. But I knew, I'm like, ain't no way in the world I can't grow up be the man I want to be if I got everybody telling me how I need to live my life. You got 5, 6 different voices, and you can't, because everybody is different. Everybody's opinion is different. So you have to, sometimes life have to teach you. And I moved, I left, but I haven't been back lived since then. But I had to teach my family, like, look, yeah, I think I was 17 at the time. Well, I think I was 17. No, I had just turned, I was 17. Anyway, I had to teach them how to treat me. So I moved out, haven't made it back to stay since then, but I don't have the issues that some people have with people being controlling, because you're not going to control me. You're not going to control me. And I understand a lot of it comes out of love. It really, really does. But you have to step back and let life teach you a lesson sometimes. And I feel bad for him. Now I was talking to him on the phone. He's been in the hospital since August. And he still, but you know, God brought him through and stuff like that. But I feel bad. I feel so bad for him because, you know, he shared a lot of personal stuff, and I won't share this because last time I won't share with anybody. But he just want to be the man that he want to be. I don't, you know, he said, Jay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to, you know, so much he don't want to do that they want him to do. They got his life planned out for him. He like, I don't want to do that. And so when he get out, it's going to be the same situation. And, you know, so yeah, but I'm sorry to go off into that, but you just kind of made me think about them. You said mental weakness. A lot of people mentally, they just, they're not there. So, yeah.
You know, and it's just, that's the most difficult part is, you know, having other people expect and feel like, you know, you should be right there with them and understand exactly what they understand. And that's where a compromise is so important, and understanding of, like you said, our differences. I mean, we're all born with a different set of life skills, and we're all trained in a different set of life skills. And recovery is possible in really almost every metric. When it comes to what you did as a peer support specialist with your friend, I mean, who knows, you've changed his step, you changed his ways probably more than you'll ever know. And with alcoholism, is that runs deep into my family as well. And there's a program, Al-Anon, that I've not gone to, that I would really love to participate in and get my family and friends in.
Yeah. Well,
understanding that alcohol is a really serious, it brings a lot of adverse experiences. And that's with the childhood adverse experiences. A lot of different trauma and a lot of different that are in our minds and trained in our being, right? Through alcohol and drugs. And so there's just so many different variables in how we can recover and how we can get better and how we can really just be a little bit more happier in today and tomorrow. It's just, it's really skewed. It's really difficult, but it has to do with, I think, mentorship training.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One of the things that I've learned when people, because some people, consume alcohol or drugs to just have a good time. But I think there's a vast majority of people too that consume because there's an underlying issue that has not been dealt with. And I know in his case, I know there are things that, he just, like for example, I'll give you an example. He doesn't want to get married. That he just don't. And his family, they are big on marriage. They are big on marriage. I mean, you know, and I feel bad for him. And honestly, I didn't even know this until one day he just came out and told me this. And and I just like, oh, I said, well, I just assumed that he always wanted to get married. Now I've been friends with him for 12 years. This came out maybe in about the 10th years of me being friends with him. So for 10 years, I just assumed that okay, he wanted to get married, or that was part of what he had planned for himself. I just assumed because that's where he came from. But he said, I don't know, I tell my family, like he said, I'm not gay, but I just don't, he says a big responsibility and I don't want that responsibility. I don't think that's what I want to do. Well, and I told him, I said, well, maybe you should, sit down and have a conversation. But and that became more depression, more anxiety for him, just more and more and more, because he did not know how to have a conversation with them, because that's a huge expectation. Me, right, on the other hand, would have been no problem for me. I would be like, well, no, that ain't what I'm gonna do, and we're gonna move on from that. And if you continue to ask me, then I'm gonna have to cut myself off, because now you're being intrusive, you're being disrespectful, you're being controlling. And so I know how to handle those conversations, but he doesn't, And so I believe that contributed to a lot of his drinking and substance abuse too. But he just don't know how to do it, So I've learned from that situation, then it caused me to think about my mom a lot too, because now we have serious conversations now too as to why she was drinking the way that she was drinking, and she kind of revealed some things to me. So I'm like, okay, there's always seemed to be like an underlying issue that has not been resolved when people just, use that in a very abusive way.
Sure.
What
a lot has to do with is addiction. And
too. Yeah.
When we're addicted to something, it's like it's almost non-controllable. I mean, in our mind. So, I mean, is it better this way? I mean, a lot of times it is, you know what I mean? If you were to be high, it's like you're high, you're not really there. So that addiction is a crave, and you want it, because when you come down, it's like, this is BS,
Yeah.
So I get it, because I was addicted to, pain pills, a big amount. And it started off for my injuries and for my reconstructive surgery. And, I was just taking, and it got to 12 a day. And then with breakthrough pain, 16 a day, and that was a couple, 3-4 years of ingesting. And that's a heroin, right? That's a synthetic heroin, is when you're talking about Norco or Oxycontin. So I get, people that would rather be on heroin. It's a good feeling, you know what I mean? And it's a really good feeling, a little bit drunk, that I can remember in my past. You know what? It gets me a little bit more loose. It gets me more friendly. It gets me, hey, how you doing? When I'm not drunk, I'm not that way. And that goes for food. It goes addicted to the food ingredients. It's addicted to, you name it. Addiction is, I think, the culprit, and in our minds is that that's what we crave, that's what we want, and that's what we need. So that's what we're going to get. But to have support and to have services and activities and programs that coach, teach, and train in a different mindset is, I think that that's the whole point of Mental Health Matters and making a difference.
Yeah. 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 I like the way you put that too, because I didn't even think about the addiction part, because that is true. There's definitely some people have addictive personalities
Sure.
and they use certain things to cope with whatever, and now that becomes their new addiction and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
you know what? I wanna do a show on gambling. I want to find somebody who was addicted to gambling. I just thought about this for some reason, because I feel like, well, anyway. But yeah, I want to do a show on gambling. So if you know somebody who used to gamble a lot, just send them my way.
On
Because
gambling, I
that's
mean,
a
that, you know what,
gambling.
that's prevalent. That is an absolute necessity, is to
Yeah,
really understand and to to get that knowledge, and that I'd love to help. I was,
yeah,
again, I was born into a family that was there was gamblers as well. So I've had my fair
yeah,
share of pulling the slot machines.
yeah, yeah. I get it. Yeah, my family was. We played cards. A lot of gamble through cards, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting growing up like that. Do you feel like your environment shaped you as the person you are, had something to do with you becoming the person you are?
The environment?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Meaning your family environment. Do
Well,
you think your family environment shaped you, somewhat shaped you into being the person that you are?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that us as human beings need to realize, is that it all comes through training. I mean, so
Yeah,
what's that saying is that if you didn't know how to tie your shoes, you would never be able to tie your shoes, or, you know, what
yeah,
behind it, whatever it is. I mean, if you want to put it in layman term, is that absolutely. I mean, when you're a child and you go through positive experiences, you're going to retain that, remember that throughout your life. You're a child and you go through adverse experiences. Those are the ones that really stick to the gut.
yeah,
Positive experiences are usually, you want more positive, right? So you want
yeah,
more. The negative is that, do we really want more? Maybe. I mean, we continue to
yeah,
get more. So to balance that out is the object, is to balance that.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way. You brought that out in a good way.
Thanks.
I I speak for myself. I know um I despised alcohol as a kid because I saw the damage that it was doing to my family. They all drank, they all drive. It wasn't thing to do that. But it's interesting. I started to do it myself. I started when, in fact, when she put me out at the age of 11 years old, that's when I started drinking. But I wasn't like a heavy drinker. I just drank to cope with what was going on. And then one thing led to another thing, and I started doing this and doing that drug and that drug.
Sure.
But I always, for some reason, school was kind of like my lifeline. I had the ability to, I would do things outside of school, rather than drinking, drugs, whatever. And I'm telling you, I would stay up all night. I would go to school, and I just excelled. Like it was crazy. I was living a double life. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. And I even heard it from my family too, because I had put up such a resistance towards their lifestyle. And for them to know that I was doing the same thing that they was doing, I was being contradictive, because I had scolded them verbally, you know, and so
Sure.
I hid that from them. And it's crazy because even though I was doing the things they was doing, I within myself, I knew that this was not going to be my lifestyle. And I have friends that I will, do things with, drink with, and do drugs, whatever. And they all said to me at some point in time in my life, they said, and they would get hooked on heroin and hooked on things. And they all said to me, you have always managed to get out of this. Like, because I've always been like that. Like when I got tired of that, I'm like, I'm done. And I would be done. Like I'd have to go to rehab, no 12 step. I would be done. And then I may, maybe in 6 months, I'm like, well, I'm gonna get into something else. I may start getting into something else. and do it for maybe a year or however long. And I get tired of it, like, okay, I'm done. I've always been able to do that. But I realize it's not my strength. I realize it comes from God because I watched when I say so many families, so many friends get hooked on things, and it just overtook their life. Like they just became an addict in a worse way, where they neglected their kids, they lost their jobs, they lost their homes. But for some reason, I was a function addict, if that's
Yeah.
for lack of better terms. But
Right.
I've always been like that.
Yeah.
Always been like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's important. And I only share when I come on this show, only because I like to be transparent with people, and I want people to know that, I kind of understand the dynamic of how things go. But I think it's important that we do share our stories and we do give people insight, because sometimes people look at you, they look at the work that's in progress, like the work in progress, and like you, to me, you don't look like you've been through none of this, but you have a story. Just like with me, people may look at me like, oh, you doing this, you got a good job, whatever. But everybody have a story. Everybody do. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah. And as far as the mental health and stuff, so I know you're very passionate about that. And I know that's a lot of things that's kind of like what's on your plate now. I looked at a video of yours.
Okay.
So I was doing a little research on you,
Okay.
and I saw that I guess you were speaking, you've done a lot of speaking, and I don't know if it was in front of the mental health board or things like that, but you was very passionate about mental health, and I was really impressed about that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you probably don't remember, do you? But you has a video. I think you has the videos up on Facebook or somewhere, or YouTube, Facebook somewhere, and I saw you doing some speaking on mental health.
Right. That I'll tell you I appreciate you mentioning that. And I'll just go with the Facebook and looking at that. And that's something that, is when Facebook came out in whatever year it was, I wasn't really too much into social media, nor was I into my computer skills. I'm not very adequate when it comes to that. And so what I did with that Facebook is I utilized that piece as my platform, platform to put my face on my book, and not in the general public. This is something that I decided for myself to do, to really learn from what I'm doing, to learn what I'm volunteering doing. I mean, this is 100% volunteer. And what it really all comes down to is taking care of our community and taking care of safety and well-being.
Right.
Not just for you and I, but for our neighbors and for it's scary out there. And I know that you are, you get around just like I do, and it's not healthy, man. There's a lot of different situations and scenarios that I can talk on just happened today and yesterday. And so when it comes to mental health and wellness and training each other how to be a little bit more non-competitive, how to be a little bit more non-judgmental, and how to just really let loose and share our story, because now's the time. When you're talking about the Facebook and talking to council or talking to our superintendents, our public representatives, that's near and dear to my heart. And I know it is near and dear to your heart and near and dear to my family's heart and my friends. And a lot of times it's hard for others to get there, to share their side, to share their voice. And a lot of times they don't have access to get there. And a lot of times maybe they're at work or they're in the hospital. So through guts, wit, and determination, we've gotten a lot accomplished throughout the mental health field. And it's really it's exciting because those videos of me talking to the groups really was forming relationships and bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bonding and to really come together and do it for not just ourselves, but to do it for others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy situation going on with this disease. It's
Yeah.
worldwide, man. It's
Yeah.
worldwide. It's like our environment is toxic. It's toxic,
Yeah.
and it's not
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
And to be a part of that, we're in it, man. We're in it.
Yeah.
We're into, you know, when people look back at us in 100 years, I mean, it's time to make a difference, and that's what we're doing here on the show, and what you've done, and everyone else through Access and all the other groups that we're here to make a difference. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Well, Kevin, we've run out of time. An hour goes by quick. So thank you so much once again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and just kind of sharing a little bit about your experience and what you're doing. So we'll connect again soon and just try to put another show together. I'm sure you have a lot that you can speak on. And I think that is very valuable information for the community to hear.
Cool.
So
Right on,
thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you and what you do, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, thank you. And that's it for today's edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this particular show, if you would like a DVD copy of this show, or if you would like to be a guest on our show, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.